All right, the one everybody was talking about up next. We hear the strains of Kansas. And it got big boos because they're in Chi-Town. They're in Chicago, and here come the douchebags. I mean, the EVPs. The EVPs in the best of 7 series for the 6-man tag team title. Twinkle Toes and the Buckaroos with Don Fallis and Knock It Off and Cutlet against the Bermuda Triangle, Penthouse and Felix and Pac. And I mentioned last week, I call them the Bermuda Triangle because they're always lost. And we're expected to see another one of these. They're going to do this, apparently, 5 more times. So as soon as these knuckleheads get in the ring, it's Chicago, the CM Punk chants break out. So Kansas gets turned way up. The announcers start talking to where as soon as somebody finishes a sentence, by the time the period is implied out of their mouth, the other announcer is jumping in. The music cross-faded quickly to the Bermuda Triangle's music, and they got them in the ring, and for the rest of the match, the crowd audio was way down. The announcers were up and trying to cover up for what might take place. And again, I'm not even going to talk about the match because I didn't watch it, because why? It's the same fucking thing. But when you zip through it, you see further evidence that Tony has lost complete control of this whole situation. There's Matt Buckaroo vaulting over the top like the buckshot lariat, but when he lands, he falls on his ass and sells his foot. Oh, golly, like CM Punk did. And then the camera caught him, and a fan camera caught him even better. They got a little section of their Buckaroo fans to start chanting "fuck CM Punk" even in Chicago, so that one of them was down there on the floor leading those chants saying, come on, come on, come on, it needs to be louder. And we've talked about this before with the Cabana thing, bringing Cabana out of goddamn nowhere to wrestle Jericho so Jericho can laugh and say he got one over on Punk with all the fucking backstage maneuvering he's been doing trying to get Punk out of there. And now the Buckaroos are pissed off because they got their asses handed to them. And which one got his eye closed up? Which one just got his bell rang? I can't remember. Nevertheless.
The eye closed up was Balding Buck.
Okay. The older one.
Sockeye Buck.
Sockeye Buck. What they're going to do, Tony Khan has not extricated himself from this situation. He has still got a valid contract with CM Punk that not only says he's got to pay him a certain amount of money, but I'm sure there's royalties for merchandise. There's all that stuff in there. They got a video game coming out. And I saw that somebody said that maybe they're going to take Punk's picture off the cover. Well, how hard is it to take a motherfucker out of a video game once he's in it? Or do they still need some type of relationship to not screw up other things? And here Tony is letting these fucking little pampered, smug nitwits who are constantly in need of having their pussies powdered inflame and instigate a fucking guy who does not like being disrespected publicly to begin with before the out is done and the ink is dry. So again, the more they do this, the more they try to piss Punk off. All he's got to do is say, okay, fuck it. I'll file this lawsuit. And then he's got a lot of people's balls in his fucking hands. And there's a lot of shit that they ain't going to want to fucking hear getting out in public is going to get out in public. And anybody in their right mind in any court of law would defend the independent contractor over the executive vice presidents in this instance, even without their shady background with other people. So all they're doing is poking the bear and pissing him off, and Tony's going to be the one to have to explain to his father, to his legal team, Mega and the rest, to the network, to whoever gets involved in the litigation. Well, yeah, he wasn't going to sue. I guess we could have worked it out, but my self-chosen EVPs wouldn't quit fucking with him on national television. So now he's suing us. That'll be a good message to deliver. And why is it that we hear all that all we've heard from Punk's side, in quotes, is Uncle Dave, the uncle of the Buckaroos. And so, well, Punk's side is said to not be happy about this. But we see the other side on national TV assing off like 6-year-old kids. So does this again cast all the other talk about, well, who was doing what behind whose back and who was doing what in front of people? Does that call all that into question again? Now let's re-examine all that shit a little bit.
I believe that was also the day that an article was published with an interview with Kenny Omega. It was a puff piece, but it was him basically saying the fans should let it go. Let this all go.
Yes.
And then they go out there and...
It's not between us and CM Punk. We should let this all go. And then his two jack-off friends go out there and start leading the self-picked fans at a fuck CM Punk chant on television. So anyway, we just saw this fucking match. And the Buckaroos were trying to be the heels since the crowd was booing the shit out of them anyway. And the match was an immediate 6-way and all over the floor, and they had the corpse referee and the same foolishness they always do. And finally, Cutlet gave Matt Buckaroo a hammer, but before he could use it, Penthouse got in with his own hammer and hit Matt Buckaroo in the back of the head or the top of the head, and Pac pinned him. So now the EVPs are down 2-0 because they're trying to babyface themselves by saying, "Oh, we don't mind doing jobs as long as somebody hits me in the head with a hammer first."
Yeah, to our only friends who are willing to work with right now.
And here's another, boy, they better make this a best of 7 series. Where's the next great 6-man tag team challengers?
House of Black.
Well, of course, that's exactly why they came back, so that they can have more fun matches with their friends. The friends that wanted to leave the company a while back. And bear with me on this, though. One more thing and we'll move on. Bear with me on this, Brian. You won't have to Google this. A lot of the other folks in the audience might. But does Kenny Olivier remind you of what the progeny would be, what the offspring would look like if there was a love child combination between 80s fitness icon Richard Simmons and 70s pop oddity Leo Sayer?
I did not expect a Leo Sayer comment.
Can you see it?
Definitely the dance moves of Leo Sayer, I would say.
Yes, it's like 70s, 80s, and today. The nutrition is better. Kenny's a little thicker than both those guys, but the hair, the expression, the mannerisms. All righty. Then we've had another...
Hey, I just wanted to say, I watched that match with my brother who was here, and he, again, a wrestling fan when he was younger, hasn't watched in years, doesn't have any interest, but he was curious what I was watching, and he watched most of Dynamite with me. 2 things that he couldn't get past. 1, the referee standing there while everything happened, not counting, not doing anything, and when he did count, took 10 seconds between 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And then also, he called it out. I'm not a big fan of sequence wrestling, and that's what this is. That's what the Young Bucks do. It's a bunch of sequences. I mean, every match, Nick and Ray Phoenix, I'm going to hold your hand, and I'll run over here and jump this way, and then you jump. Every match, sequence wrestling. But he found... And again, he hasn't watched this shit in years. He goes, where are those other guys? How come everyone disappeared?
Yeah.
Why are those guys on the floor? Yeah, he called it out. Everyone waiting for their spot to run in and do the sequence. It looks bad to someone who doesn't watch.
Hey, in MLW, Penthouse and Felix were there, right? And I saw them do this live for the first time, and now apparently they do it in every match, but they will do that double team thing off the top rope, where one guy stomps, the other guy is holding him or whatever the fuck, boom. And then the guy that did the stomp or whatever off the top jumps up, hits the ropes, and runs and dives out of the ring onto somebody that just happens to be standing on the floor in the right place, right? Every fucking time. And the first time I saw him do it, they're not even smart enough to realize they step on their own finish. That was the double team move was their finish. Boom. And as the guy gets up and goes to cover the guy that they flattened, the other guy hits the ropes and does the dive. Well, the camera's following the dive and they missed their own finish. And then I said, well, certainly they'll never do that again. They do the same goddamn thing every time. Hit this move, guy hits the ropes, dives out on the floor on some guy that just happens to be standing in the right place. And everybody follows that. Nobody sees the pin or the whatever the fuck they're doing with the other thing. But it's got to be, if you watched wrestling 20 years ago and then have not seen any of it, anything since then, and you watch something now, I think everybody can agree on this, regardless of whether you think that the shit these days is any good or not. Whoever was watching from 20 years ago, hasn't seen anything, and then watches this today, their only response can be, what the fuck is this?
That was it.
The fuck is this?
That was pretty much it for several segments on the show, including this match.